Good morning to all of you choosing to be with us on Zoom and all of you who will watch this video later. Today, we're going to be talking about hospitality, following on our session last week about gratitude. It seems like a very appropriate subject for us because my belief is that gratitude is sort of the forebearer of hospitality. When we live in a graceful way or a grateful way, I think we're more inclined to take hospitality seriously. I'm grateful to several people this morning who helped me as I worked on this talk. I'm grateful to Steve Bridwell, who's not here this morning, but he helped me with some words. And then I met with Mariana, and she helped me a bunch more. And Pastor Rebecca helped me because I needed to get this handout printed. So hopefully you got the handout, those of you on Zoom. You probably don't need it till we get down to the second part, but it will probably help then.
I'm going to give it to you, Zoomers. One moment. I'm going to put it in the chat. I forgot about that. And at some point, if there's any of it you want them specifically to see,
Okay.
I can screen share, but I don't want to do that the whole time.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also grateful to the Disciples of Christ Church for being so hospitable. It's been a delight. Rebecca posted that she's been here 12 years, so I've been here almost 12 years. And I'm grateful to those people who came up with our positioning statement for our 75th anniversary, because I think it really speaks to the heart of who we are. Celebrating 75 years of sharing Christ's welcome. And there's also a song that we sing, all are welcome, all are welcome. As a child, I wasn't quite sure who was welcome. One time when I went to annual conference, when I was still a Methodist, I found this button. And this button says, all means all. I was well into my 50s, and I was so happy to find this button because as a child, my question was, who's welcome? Who's in? Who's out? I struggled with that for a long time. So I brought this morning. I've had this for at least 15 years, and it's one of my prized possessions. So the first thing I did was go to the dictionary and found there this definition of hospitality: the quality or disposition of receiving and treating guests and strangers in a warm, friendly, and generous way. And I was thinking about the hospitality industry, which is not what we're going to talk about today. Cornell University has a whole school where people can go and learn to run hotels and restaurants and hotels and resorts, but that's not what we're about right now. So I went back and Mariana helped me find some scriptures. If you'll turn to page 14, if somebody will read verses 1 through 15 for us.
This is Genesis 18.
Genesis 18.
1
yeah.
through 15.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Put my mask down and try to project without, I'll drop off in the middle of it all.
If you drop off, somebody will take it up.
Well, no, I think my voice.
What verse are we starting with?
One.
One.
Yeah, thank you.
The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is anything wonderful for the Lord? At the set time, I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I didn't laugh," for she was afraid. He said, "Oh, yes, you did laugh."
So we probably only needed to read through 8, but I like this story so much that we read the whole thing. I think this is probably the best example I could find of the Jewish tradition of hospitality. Here come these 3 guys, and they really don't know who they are. But the tradition says, treat strangers well, welcome them. And that's exactly what they did. They really welcomed them. I mean, a calf was killed.
Sunwise.
Yeah. So this comes right out of our Hebrew scriptures, and is definitely part of the Christian tradition as well. Let's look now at Hebrews 13, and it's not correct on your sheet. It's just verse 2.
On page 227 in the New Testament section,
Yes.
Hebrews 13, verse 2.
And it's actually okay to read verse 1 too, because it feels hospitable to me.
Yes.
Does somebody want to read verses 1 and 2? Sure, John.
Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it.
Very interesting
Oh.
to me. Yeah,
I wonder who that,
what's
I
that?
wonder who that was. They did that.
Yes. We also have examples in the scriptures of Jesus providing wine in his first miracle at the wedding at Cana. And we have the example of the feeding of the 5,000. Started out with just a little bit and ended up with so much more. What I'd like you to do now is take a minute We're gonna take 5 minutes actually. To think about these questions. What did you see modeled about hospitality when you were a child? Is there an experience of hospitality that stands out in your memory? So, I mean, this is just like any of these open-ended questions. There are no right or wrong answers, just what comes to you that you feel called. Oh, yeah, we need pens. Oh, we're not gonna do it yet. No, we're gonna write it down and then we're gonna share in pairs.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
and then we'll come back to the room. I see there's just a little bit of writing still going on, so let's take another few minutes. Oh. And now I see that the writing is done. Okay.
No. She was just holding her pen.
So now what I'd like to do is have you break into pairs. And let's see, how are we gonna do them?
You shouldn't let people talk to their spouse.
No, that's what I'm trying to figure out, exactly. So I'm gonna start with one, you're two, you're one, you're two, you're one, you're two, around.
That's gonna make a big group
No,
Rather than pairs.
rather than pairs.
oh,
Why don't you just put these two and then John and Michael and Jennifer and Cheryl. and
good
Jennifer,
idea.
And I can come over and talk to you guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And Betty and Kathy will let you talk to each other, and I'm going to mute us so that you guys can hear each other, okay?
Okay.
That makes sense? You saw the questions, right? They're still in the chat
Yeah.
box. if you need
Yeah.
them.
Betty, you have to unmute if we're going to do this.
There we go.
There we go. So, what did you see modeled about hospitality when you were a child?
My father had a business and he was the most, you say, open door person. Everybody who came in, but he was the same at home.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, I remember I had, let's see, what was it? An elderly fellow. He was kind of not an orphan, well, sort of like an orphan. He was alone, didn't have any family. Anyway, my folks took him in and made an apartment for him in their basement and kept him. And
Nice.
those are the two things that pop out at me. How about you?
Well, my dad was a preacher, so we had people over for dinners pretty often.
Oh,
I guess the one that really comes to mind is what I would call extreme hospitality. Somebody elsewhere in the state, I don't know exactly where, their kid had run away and turned up in our area. So Dad picked her up and she spent the night with us before her parents could come pick her up. Now, our house was fairly small, which meant she shared my bed for the night. So
I think also our we had a young gal that was our youth pastor at the church. And I think, oh man, she lived in an apartment not too far from the church. She had us over there, how many times through her years there that we've spent in her apartment, going over and seeing her and open doors, I think we're seeing lots of examples of hospitality this day and age is with all of the influx of immigrants and trying to provide places for them. And it's another phase of hospitality, I'll tell you.
yeah. Which, as a country, we're not doing so good at, but lots of individuals do.
Exactly.
I kind of wish that I were in a position to offer more hospitality than I do. I mean, I And so I had a friend that was between places stay with me for like a couple of weeks last year, but in general, it's just not that easy here. So,
Well, when you say that, the thing that comes to mind is it's almost like another type of hospitality. You are very hospitable to people who come to you, may not be physically in person,
mhm.
but
I try.
you
I
are
mean,
very open. Yes.
thank you.
Mhm. Bill can't talk. He just went left, headed to the church.
Well, how inhospitable of him.
He just walked out the door. I told him he ought to just, for the half an hour, he might as well just go to the church half an hour early and be down there in the group, you know. What a character.
I'm not sure. I wasn't entirely sure I was going to be awake and down at the computer in time for class today. I did not want to wake up.
Amen to that, girl. When I got ready to go to bed, I discovered my Cox was out last night. And so I called Cox. I was on there like over about an hour trying to get my internet up. So I said, well, I won't be on Zoom in the morning. But they got me going. So here we are. I have some neighbors that are, when you think about hospitality, they are forever having a relative or a friend or somebody. There's always more people in their house than their family. We are a wonderful Christian family. We're just so open. Another thing just came to mind too in hospitality. This isn't growing up, but of course, yeah, growing up, my mom was forever. They always extended their table out with all the leaves they could get into it and having people in for special things. But this is one of the things that people called a Pam. They called her Party Pam because she was having a tea or entertained the family at Christmas, you know, and Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
Loved having people come into her home. Many. She had her, let's see, her grandmother's table that extended. I don't know how many leaves, must have like a half a dozen leaves in it,
Wow.
an ancient thing, and take up the whole room, fill it up with people.
Yeah. I don't even have space really for a table for even one or two people. Well,
Yeah, like a card table.
I could if, but there so much stuff has accumulated in the room where it should be that
Oh,
there's not room to set one up.
right.
I have books instead.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a lot of people come in, you know, involved in alcohol in here at the assistant pastor and teacher, etc.
Hmm.
We were forever having our class parties here. Fun days, I'll tell you. Life changes with the years.
Yes, it does.
Do you have animals in your complex?
In the complex, yes. I don't have pets because I'm allergic. But yeah, I have neighbors with dogs and cats. Probably other things that are inside and I don't see.
Or here, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it definitely don't hear. Yeah, it's I live in a townhouse in a complex with lots of green space.
Oh,
So the only ones I would hear would be my immediate neighbors. And one side, they don't actually live there. So I only have one neighbor and I don't think they have any pets. I never hear anything.
oh, you have a quiet spot then.
Oh yeah, very quiet. I love even though at townhouse, lots of stairs, not so easy for me. I love this place. I love this little complex. People who've not been here before, when they drive in, they're like, oh, wow, I had no idea this was here. This is so nice. It really is. This is the second unit in here that I looked at, and I just fell in love with the place the first time I saw it.
So, I know you have spoken of that place before, and I wondered, do they have any type of elevators or anything at all, any place in the complex?
Oh, not at all.
None at all, it's all stairs.
Again, it's all townhouses, so it's someone. Well, there are some one-story units, but mine is tri-level.
Yeah.
Most of them are.
So,
And yeah, like, it's all condos. So it's not like I'm going to, even if one came on the market, I couldn't really afford to sell in my place, buy another, and move. So
I think you do amazingly well getting around as well as you do.
I do what I can. No, um, yeah, the other day I tried to go over to Target to pick up a prescription because my mail order had issues, and so I needed an immediate fill. So it was at Target, and the battery on my scooter started acting up almost to the trolley station. So thankfully, Amy and Stephen and Cliff were able to come rescue me.
Um, is it okay now?
It's with my repair guy now, so we'll find out what's going on with it. But I got my refill. They took me on the rest of the way to Target, and we switched out the battery pack, and it seemed to do better with the other battery. But like the one that started acting up got me a good half mile down the road, so and I didn't go that far with the other one. So we'll see what repair guy comes back with.
Do you have any type of motorized things that you use around your apartment, or do you
Not around the house. There's too many stairs. It wouldn't work very well. I'd use a walker or canes depending on where in the house I am. Yeah, my condo is very vertical. But never more than 6 stairs at a time.
Wow.
Like it's kind of a weird layout, but it's quirky. I like it. I will eventually probably get a lift on the inside stairs, but it's not really in the budget right now. And I can generally manage them, so.
And doing the fact that you are doing it regularly helps probably to keep your body in shape too. If you weren't doing it, you would.
Yeah. It's kind of a toss up. Like there are pros and cons, but yeah.
Mhm.
We invite you to wrap up your conversation, which it looks like you have.
We did.
Thank you.
Well, that's one thing I just to enjoy it. I'll accept it.
Especially when we call it right.
Okay, everyone. So the next part is a group sharing time. Was there something your partner shared that you would like to share with the group? So it's not what you shared with the group, with your partner. It's what your partner shared.
Well, I'll start.
Okay,
This is Cheryl. Oh, sorry. She's looking this way, that way. Cheryl was talking about within her family, then they would have gatherings and then various people would be invited. They were not exactly their best friends. They were just maybe far off relatives that they didn't see very often that maybe didn't come, or just other people who needed some turkey or some pie. They would invite them in for a nice meal. So I think I got it right. Or did you want to add?
I mean, everyone was welcome, so, people would show up with people that they knew. That, that we didn't necessarily know, or it might be somebody's brand new boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that, that we had never met.
With them all around.
Yeah, and anybody was welcome in that way. Although if somebody wandered in off the street, that never happened. I don't know what would have happened if that had happened, but after the drink was flowing for a while, probably nobody would have noticed.
oh my.
In
Michael?
our group, we talked a bit about hospitality in the context of being outgoing to people who are visitors to the church or whom we may wish to come to church. And it wasn't hospitality so much, it was more public relations. How do you approach people, or how do you speak to people who visit you? It's I think our feeling was that it has to be very, to use my word, soft sell. You have to not try to overwhelm them with your hospitality and telling them about the church, but just try to make them interested.
Yes. Yes, Rebecca.
That reminds me of something that you said, Mary Jane, that I think might apply to that. Mary Jane was telling us a story from her childhood when she experienced hospitality from a friend of her father's, and she was surprised that people who weren't family would be so welcoming and generous. And I think that's something, there are probably a lot of people out there who don't know that sometimes that happens, that there are people who will welcome you like family, even though you just met. And I think that's, we use the word family a lot here sometimes, and it has a lot of baggage, but in those good connotations, the idea that somebody would accept you, even though they may have just met you, but welcome you like, oh, of course you belong here.
Yeah.
I may not even like you, but of course you belong here and we'll share our food. And we'll see about the rest of it later, right? But I think there are people who, when we can do that sincerely, are kind of shocked in a good way.
Surprised, the huge surprise was what it felt like. Yeah. Yeah. Are there other things, Mariana?
Yeah, I'd like to share that Lynn shared how the family sold Christmas trees. They always had treats ready, like hot water to make cocoa and what else?
Popcorn.
Popcorn. Yeah, think what fun that would be if you just went out to get a Christmas tree and
In the mountains.
it's
Yes,
that would
yes,
be great. Yeah,
way up in Hummel.
really memories. And then I noticed that Lynn is the one who seemed to me almost always starts the coffee. And I asked her if there was a schedule and she said, well, actually there is, but she was always here first. So I think that's really hospitality.
And the one who knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Are there other things that were shared? Kathy and Betty and Bill? How about you folks?
Bill didn't share, he's on his way down there.
Yeah, Bill left us inhospitably.
His hospitality was really great. No, he wanted to get down for choir. I think Kathy was, what you say, big from a pastor's family. The hospitality was a natural byproduct.
Mhm.
Open-
Especially in the period where we lived in a church-owned house.
Yeah, yeah. Are there other things that the members of your twosome or threesome shared that you'd like to?
Oh, Betty talked about her family taking in somebody and building them an apartment in the basement.
Wow. Wow. So we all have experience with this, for sure. On this paper, I read this so many times that we have one question that's here twice. I finally found the second part. But let's go by the one that's just below the one we just answered. And let's talk for a little bit about what you see as stumbling blocks to hospitality. What are the things that get in the way of us being hospitable?
My dog.
Oh, dogs.
They're horrible.
Cleaning the house.
Ah,
Yeah, I think we think we have to be ready and we have to cleaned up, but also, I was really noticing this in the story that we read from Genesis. The three guests show up. Abraham goes and has his wife start baking bread straight from flour. Think about how long that takes.
Exactly.
Then he goes and gets a calf, like who we presume was alive to begin with, right? So it has to be slaughtered, it has to be butchered, then it maybe gets to get cooked. Like he wasn't ready. And presumably the guests were happily hanging out under the tree that whole time. So I just, like we think about, I think some of the most beautiful moments happen when your guests are kind of sitting around the kitchen counter while you're still cooking,
mhm,
right? Because that's, I think hospitality that's real and in process is almost more heartfelt than when you're ready the moment they come to the door and everything is perfect and tasty and somehow you manage to get all the food on the table at the right moments, and like that just feels like, oh, you think you have to present to me or impress me instead of being a real human being, which is
mhm,
what I can connect with, right? So
mhm,
so there are a lot of stumbling blocks, I think, related to that.
mhm,
That's a really good point, and what Kathy brought up too, is that can be a stumbling block, thinking that not just that you need to be ready, but that your house needs to look a certain way, especially if you have physical problems, as many people in our congregation do. So,
mhm,
your ability to make things ready varies from time to time too, and that's definitely a stumbling block.
mhm, mhm. The thing that came to my mind is a stumbling block can be when a church gets so small that we pull inward and we do a lot of sharing among ourselves, but somehow that open, what did my definition say, warm, welcoming, can get left behind, I think, because we're so eager to talk to one another. And I think we're pretty aware of that here. And the queen of open-hearted welcome would be Jennifer Layton, who I often see having wonderful, I think they're wonderful, I'm not in on it.
They are.
Good
They are.
conversations with just people that have just come through the door. And there are others of you who act the same way. It's a wonderful gift. Yeah.
One problem I have with regards to this, and we didn't discuss it, but I have a hard time initiating conversation in certain situations. because if I had a, when I'm upstairs doing the showers,
Yes.
I have no problem, it's my setting. All my things around, talk about it, and so forth and so on, and of course, they're very happy about going up and taking a shower, so they're talking already when they arrive. And I have a kind of a history of the church, and where am I sitting, set out in the history of the church, but it's old church. And so there, I'm very comfortable, and sometimes I walk through the other church to see what it was like, and so forth and so on. And of course, there's the shower has to work, you have to know certain things about how the shower works and so forth. So if I have a setting, seems like I do better. That was probably true with teaching school. I have a setting, they were coming to see me, so they would be initiating the conversation. And then we go from there. Now, sometimes I can get through that setting if somebody I know comes to the school or upstairs, and only have a common entity with sports. That's but otherwise, the people I noticed, Jennifer Court, the people I noticed that do a real good job are Jerry and Ray. They always have an ability to start a conversation extremely well. And there's others, but those keep in mind. But you're right. We have a tendency to be comfortable with the people we're generally talking to most of the time.
Yeah. And the word that comes to me when I think about that is trust, you know. These people just showed up in Genesis, and it seemed like there was such a strong pattern or way of doing things that they didn't even stop to think, is it safe to talk to these people, you know?
The same as what John's describing. They had a prescribed function because their culture prescribed that this
Yes.
is what you do at the stranger showing up.
Yes,
Yeah.
Just as you know, John's saying, when he has a job
yeah,
and people, come to him when he has that job,
Yeah.
there's no shyness or awkwardness, because
Yeah.
he knows what to do and what to say.
Yeah.
The story does not tell us if Abraham made small talk with the angels the whole time the bread was baking and the calf was cooking.
yeah,
We don't know how that went.
yeah. But you can imagine that was a really good opportunity to get to know someone. Get the backstory, how did you end up here today? All that stuff, you know?
Where are y'all from?
Where you all from? Yeah,
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
are you?
What
Yeah.
did you do?
who are you? Exactly.
Um,
So this last part is about, are the words that you would use to define hospitality that we haven't mentioned already today? When I gave you the definition, quality or disposition of receiving and treating guests and strangers in a warm, friendly, and generous way. So I wrote down warm, friendly, and generous, but are there other words that when you think about hospitality, you'd like to add to that list?
It's the same thing, and I'll probably get it backwards because I always do. But there's a very famous book by Thomas Keating that's open heart, open mind, or open mind, open heart. I don't know which. I always mess up the order that's in. But open heart and open mind, I think it kind of means the same as the words you use, but they are different.
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
Well, when you go someplace, sometimes you want to be a really, really good guest.
Mhm.
And so I have to trust John on this. It's funny story that happened in Australia. I was telling a little bit about our trip to Australia, but so Robin was the new bride, which wasn't a bride yet. He had been with the wife for a long time, so he decided to get married. We stayed with him. And so talking about having things ready. So she wanted to have this really wonderful dinner for us when we first arrived, and she baked this really fancy cake. And so she passed it out, and we're going, yeah, this is really good, Robin. Yeah, this is really good, Robin. And then, but we're really going, ugh. And then John says, oh, this is great. You're such a good baker, Robin. She really. And then she took a bite and she said, no, that's what I want. She mixed up
Oh.
baking soda
Oh.
with some flour, and then it was a whole cake of baking soda mixed with a little bit of flour.
Oh, no.
So that was her grand welcoming dinner for the relatives from
Yeah.
across the Pacific, so.
But she was the
She learned fast that y'all were gonna lie to her all the time.
We all did, but John especially, oh my goodness, he just poured it on it. And then when she told, he just kept pouring it on and eating it. Oh, you're gonna be so.
It's better for John if it has less flour, right? So-
Yeah.
One of the words that I used in our little small group there, it was very clear when I was growing up that for our family, hospitality was an obligation. We were the ones that hosted guests, but I realized that yes, it was an obligation, and it was, as Kathy was saying, pastor lives in a parsonage, there's an expectation that you use that house, right, to serve guests. My parents were pastors, but we had a big house and we had room, and so I think my mother had a very strong sense. If you have room, you let people stay in them, right? But it was also a calling. It was a calling, and that feels like less of a burden, right? Like, this is who we are. We are the people who have the people stay with us, and we feed them. And we did not have a house that was like put together and perfect. It was 140 years old when I was growing up, and my parents had like renovated it themselves, and they weren't done yet. Most of that time we were hosting guests. So, but if that's what you do it as best you can under the circumstances that you're in. So
Thank you.
I forgot about that, people sleeping on sofas and sleeping on the floor and stuff like that. Right, yeah.
Yes.
Or sharing my bed in one case.
Really?
A kid had run away and turned up in our area, so Dad picked her up until her parents could get there the next day to pick her up. And yeah, shared my bed that night.
we're glad you weren't murdered in your sleep.
Well, she was around my age. I mean, my life was not in danger. Just a runaway kid,
Your parents had good judgment. Yeah. Good. Well, at the end here, I've listed my definition after spending quite a bit of time thinking about hospitality. Hospitality is gratitude in action. We are aware and grateful for all God has given us and humbly respond in a similar way, praying with our actions. Let's have a quick prayer as we close. Thank you, Mark, for coming. Happy to see Mark, always.
Bill.
Oh, and Bill. Everybody's happy to see both of you. Yeah. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for this time together. We give you thanks for all the ways that you bless us. We give you thanks for our very lives and the breath of life within us. As we go forward, let us keep our hearts and minds open so that we may extend hospitality to those who show up. In Jesus' holy name, amen.